Well, welcome everyone to our weekly Islamic parenting live streaming that happens every single Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Um, and today, inshallah, we're going to have a really fruitful conversation with Imam Hussein. Salaam alaikum, Imam.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته محمد.
How are you doing?
الحمد لله.
Alhamdulillah. So, this is actually the second part of our interesting topic, the etiquette of seeking knowledge in Islam. This is the second part of this topic. And for the last time, for those people who didn't get to watch the last video, we talked about the significance of seeking knowledge. We talked about the virtue of seeking knowledge in Islam. We talked about the right approach to seek knowledge in Islam. Also, we talked about the ethics and like today, inshallah, we're going to be talking about the ethics and the etiquettes of seeking knowledge in Islam. And Imam Hussein, for those people who do not know him, he is actually the head of education at Muslimito Institution. He is a member of Al Azhar Fatwa Global Center, and he is also a lecturer at Faculty of Sharia and Law, Al Azhar University. So, Imam Hussein, a
نعم.
lot of people actually all the time try to learn, but they do not know actually the right approach to seek knowledge. So, would you please tell us a little bit more how can we get to seek knowledge in Islam so we can get, like we can say, like hasanat, and the very same time we learn?
Yeah, this is definitely a very important question. So I start, as always, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. All praise is due to Allah, the Almighty, the Lord of the worlds. And may Allah's peace, mercy, and blessings be upon His final and last messenger, Muhammad. And may Allah's peace, mercy, and blessings be upon you, Sheikh Muhammad, and all the Muslimito family, and all our dear, respected viewers from across the globe. It is definitely great that we have the opportunity to pick up where we left last time, speaking of the significance of seeking knowledge and the etiquettes and the manners of seeking knowledge, and most importantly, the right approach and the right methodology to seek knowledge. I just want to recap into more details what we have already covered in the last webinar so that we are more in a position to continue uh, today or tonight, depending where our dear respected viewers and followers are. So,
Yeah, that's great. So people can get to, like recap. Thank you.
and to be in on the full picture with us.
Exactly.
We have looked into some of the noble verses of the Quran and how is it repeatedly. Anyone who explores the noble Quran, they can clearly and explicitly find numerous verses that illustrate the importance of seeking knowledge. And it suffices here to highlight the one verse in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly instructs the Prophet, peace be upon him, and thus all Muslims to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase the Prophet, peace be upon him, in knowledge. So we can clearly see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not urge the Prophet or ask the Prophet or guide him to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for more of anything except when it came to seeking
Knowledge.
knowledge.
Hmm.
Another important hadith in this regard is the one in which the Prophet peace be upon him clearly tells us that every step, and this definitely means every effort
Hmm.
that the individual uh, does, or every effort that the man or the woman exerts in pursuit of seeking knowledge, this is per se is an act of worship. And this is where we really need to pause in order to reflect and think beyond what we normally think about. And that's seeking knowledge per se is an act of worship in Islam.
Hmm.
Just as praying 5 times a day is an act of worship, just as uh, fasting during the month of Ramadan is an act
Hmm.
of worship, this is also the case when it comes to seeking knowledge. As a matter of fact, as Muslims, we understand from the literature of the well established and the reliable Muslim scholars that
Hmm.
it is the obligation and the requirement of every Muslim to seek knowledge even before worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why we find in the writings of the Muslim scholars, they speak, for example, and they say clearly, باب العلم قبل القول والعمل. That's the chapter on seeking knowledge or acquiring knowledge before
Working.
acting or before saying anything. To,
Yeah.
to clearly indicate the importance of having a clear vision, which is the outcome of having knowledge. And this is why, even when it comes to the mission of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and
عليه
that
الصلاة
to
والسلام.
guide people to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and only, he clearly says, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرًا. This is my way, this is my path. I call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala based on or on the basis of sure knowledge.
Hmm.
With that being said, also we have highlighted the right methodology or the right approach, if I may say, to seeking knowledge. And this is very important because this is a question that's on the minds of so many knowledge seekers and also many parents. They
Hmm.
repeatedly raise this question, and even many new Muslims or revert Muslims, because as a human being at some point we would be highly encouraged and highly motivated to learn everything, but if we don't have the clear methodology, there would be confusion, and more significantly, there would be a sense of frustration with
Hmm.
time, because lacking the right methodology would by necessity means there are no clear criteria of the extent of accomplishment or achievement or advancement in knowledge. So this is why it's important to have a clear methodology in this regard. And this
Yes.
is why, Sheikh Muhammad, we mentioned the poem that Imam Shafi'i
إمام الشافعي. Yeah.
have mentioned him, highlighted. And at the very beginning, and I may even uh, recite to all our dear viewers and listeners what Imam Shafi'i has stated in this regard. He has said, أخي لن تنال العلم إلا بستة سأنبيك عن تفصيلها ببياني ذكاء وحرص واجتهاد وبلغة وصحبة أستاذ وطول زماني. So very briefly, Imam al-Shafi'i here, he identifies or he pinpoints
Hmm.
6 important elements that are necessary for the knowledge seeker to keep in mind. The first one is zakah, and
Hmm.
that's the idea of having the intellectual capacity to seek knowledge. And with the generosity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is available for the sweeping majority of all human beings, that we have the natural capacity to acquire knowledge. Yet the question can be, sometimes people have challenges with this. So, what is the solution? What is the right way to deal with this? Imam al-Ghazali speaks about this in many of his writings, and especially in Ihya Ulumuddin. And
Hmm.
he mentions that one of the most important factors that assist the knowledge seeker to increase their intellectual capacity is being of al-muttaqin, is being of the pious and the ones who are mindful and conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Shafi'i as well, he has very powerful lines in this regard, as he is reported to have said, I have complained to my Sheikh Wakia that
Yeah.
I have a challenge in memorizing, and we know that Imam Shafi'i, may Allah have mercy on him, he had such a breathtaking memory. So he says, I had to complain to my Sheikh, Sheikh Wakia. So
Yeah.
he is, yeah, and my Sheikh Wakia, he guided me to being mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and avoiding sins and avoiding falling into any sins or any disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the
Yeah.
first one. That's to be of dhaka. Then he moves to hirs, and that's to be keen on seeking knowledge, which by default means the dedication necessary to acquiring knowledge and dedicating the time and the energy of the individual to acquire knowledge. Then he moves to the third point, and that's ijtihad. And ijtihad, as you know, Sheikh Muhammad, it means to do one's best or to exert one's utmost to attain what they are after or what they are seeking. And we will be talking more about this as we speak of some of the inspiring stories of the Muslim scholars in their pursuit of seeking knowledge. And then he moves to the fourth one, and that's the bulgha, or what is necessary to provide the knowledge seeker so much so that they fulfill their basic needs when it comes to food and drinking and means of transportation. And this is why nowadays we have this idea of a scholarship so that the knowledge seeker, he or she, is
Can go everywhere, then learn.
and to focus and to dedicate their time and their full capacity to seeking knowledge. Then Imam Shafi'i moves to the fifth point, and that's by saying وَصُحْبَةُ أُسْتَاذٍ, and that's being in the company of the alim or being in the company of the sheikh or the scholar. And this is very important because many of the sad incidents that we witness in many communities and in many parts around the world, the root cause of all of them is lacking this requirement that people who issue sometimes fatwas that contradict the basics of Islam. The reason for this is because they had no sheikhs. They didn't spend the necessary and the sufficient time in the
Hmm.
company of a alim who would explain and who would provide them with the foundations of seeking knowledge and the foundations of the scholarly approach of the Muslim scholars when it comes to issuing a fatwa.
Yeah,
This is
or maybe one of them just read an ayah or hadith or even an article or like even fake website that writes something about Islam or something. So he didn't get to fully understand the whole point, then he gets to issue points. So like as I said, it's way too important for someone to have the company of the alim, like you really learn practically how to apply this religion, right?
This is exactly the point, and this is the wisdom behind spending the necessary time in the company of the alim or the sheikh. And this is why we need to be very careful nowadays when we hear something like, come and join us just for 2 weeks and you will become a scholar in this field. This is not professional.
Hmm.
This is not practical, and this is not the right approach. And this is why we find institutions like Al Azhar. You have, for example, and as an Azhari, I'm sure also you know Sheikh Muhammad, that we spend 6 years at the primary stage, then 3 years at the preparatory stage, then another 3 years at the secondary or the high stage. Then at the university level, it can be 4 to 5 years, then 2 years at postgraduate studies, and then 3 to 4 years doing the masters, and then maybe 5 or more years to do the PhD, and still they are only knowledge seekers. So this is what we need to keep in
That's a
mind.
long story. Like I got tired just by just like listening to you saying this.
I will leave it
That's a
to
long path.
I will leave it to the viewers to do the math of how many years this takes. So
Like even as you said right now, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but as you said right now, that even when somebody gets to study all that time, and even when somebody gets to just like cover all these information all these years, at
yeah,
the end of the day, he never get to say, "Wow, I am a sheikh." Like
yeah,
I can give fatwas easily. Like he still can say, "I can give fatwa only in this part because this is my
yeah.
specification. Like this is the thing that I know well how to do it." That's why we can say like easy come easy go, like if somebody got easy like information, he's not going to be able to like
Uh,
present that well.
This is definitely very important, Sheikh Muhammad, and this is why when we look into the literature of the Muslim scholars on this point in particular, we have a very powerful saying, and that's when they say, لا يزال المرء عالما ما دام يطلب العلم
Mm,
فإذا قال علمت فقد جهل. That's an individual is a scholar, is really a knowledgeable person as long as they keep acquiring knowledge, as long as they are on the path of seeking knowledge. Yet, once the individual says, now I know everything, at this point they become ignorance. I will repeat it again. An individual is a scholar and
mm,
is indeed a knowledgeable person as long as they are doing their best and exerting their utmost to seek knowledge and to acquire more knowledge. So, because this is the right attitude and this is the right approach of a real scholar, that they are always humbled and they always realize that they are in a dire need of learning more and there is still more to learn about. And this is why they go on to say, yet once the person says, now I know everything, at this point they become real ignorance. To show us the meaning of the verse in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. And there is above each knowledgeable person someone who is more knowledgeable to teach us the humbleness of seeking knowledge. Moving swiftly back to the recommendations or the pieces of wisdom that Imam Shafi'i has highlighted after
yeah.
being in the company of the alim or the ustad or the scholar. Imam Shafi'i says, وَطُولُ زَمَانِ, as if he is
Mm,
adding more emphasis to the previous point, and that's to clearly tell us in very straightforward manner, in a very like to the point way,
yeah.
very bluntly, وَطُولُ زَمَانِ, to tell us seeking knowledge takes time. Just
Mm,
as any discipline takes time for its practitioner to become an expert in this field, this is also the case when it comes to seeking knowledge. This
yeah,
does,
like it's slowly, but at the end of the day, it's surely like, and also as I said like a minute ago, like easy come easy go. Like you learn that like really fast, so you're gonna get to like forget all the information, and also like to be able to be a doctor, for example, you really need to cover a lot of information. You really need to learn a lot of things. So وطول زمان, which means that it takes time for a person to get this knowledge.
no, yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Yes. So this is why it's very worthwhile in this context, Sheikh Muhammad, to mention some of the stories of the early Muslim scholars and their patience and their perseverance and their endurance in the path of seeking knowledge. And the story that I'd like to share with all our dear respected viewers and listeners and all the family, all the family members who are watching us, and it is really great if it is the parents and also the children
Yeah.
along with them. I'd like to share the story of Taqiyu ibn Mukhlid.
Yeah, the name of the person is called Taqi.
Yeah, as a matter of, it's not in some narrations his name is Taqi, and in others his name is Baqi ibn.
Yeah.
And he
Both
is,
of them are really beautiful names,
yeah.
mashallah. Like it came out of piousness, mashallah. So, Imam, if you can just like give me a second, so I can just summarize the points that you got to mention before we get to move on to the story of Taqi, because it seems to be a really interesting story. But till now, as I said, that we covered some points which are, the first one, like never ever stop learning. Like the thing that all the time we need to do is to learn, learn, learn. Never say, "Whoa, I'm done." No, but all the time we need to get to learn. But is it okay to say for money, it's okay, I don't want any money anymore? So shall we compare them together?
Or
Money and knowledge?
it is good to have both, but the point is to use them in a way that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, for some people, actually, they never get to stop getting more money. Like if you can get more and more money, you're not gonna say no. And like for some human being, they live for the rest of their lives, or actually all their lives, trying to get money. So shall we compare them? Like you can live just to get knowledge?
I
Can we?
understand, I understand your question is very important. And what
Yeah.
I need to clearly state is Islam guides us to strike a balance. And this is why you find in the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ that the best money is the one that's in the position of a scholar. Because when the person has the knowledge, they will utilize this money wisely and in a beneficial way and in a way that benefits all the members of their communities and all human beings at large. So,
Yeah.
my very quick and brief answer to this question is
Yeah.
to strike a balance that
Yeah.
we do our best to earn the money lawfully, and we give the poor and the needy their rights in the form of the charity or the form of the zakah, in
Hmm.
addition to, of course, acquiring knowledge, especially when it comes to every individual acquiring the minimum amount of knowledge that enables them to be worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on sure knowledge so that they
Yeah.
know the pillars of faith, they know the articles of faith, and they know definitely their rights and their obligations or the responsibilities that fall on them.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. So again, let me summarize that. The first point we said, never stop learning. The more you get like knowledge, the more Allah is gonna be pleased. Second one, you said like when you learn, you're gonna get hasanat. So learning, like or acquiring knowledge is a very rich source for getting hasanat. Also, you talked about that whenever somebody is pious, Allah will help him to get to learn faster. As Imam Shafi'i, he had this super sharp memory because he was super pious. And then when that situation happened to him, when he made the sin, his shaykh told him that any sin can stop you from learning, or if you can say, any sin will stop you from actually getting to be a good learner, if you can say. Also, you talked about the company of the alim, or if you can actually translate this, or if you can relate this to the real life, which is having that religion more, a little bit more practical. That it's not about just like learning something out of like the TV or like any website or something, or reading even a book, but you need to be in the company of a alim. Also, you talked about that like fatwa, or given Islamic rulings or whatsoever, you should be super qualified. And you talked about this super long journey for any Azhari person, and how he gets like he gets through all of these hardships so he can get to be able to be qualified to give fatwa and stuff. And so also you talked about that nobody should say, "Whoa, I'm done. I am alim. I know everything." That is not accepted at all, because whenever you say that I know everything, this means that you do not know a lot of things, because the only one who knows everything is Allah, obviously. And the last point, that is that it takes time. everything takes time, especially when it comes to knowledge. So, Imam Hussein, would you please tell us this interesting story about Taqi, like
بقي
his name?
بن بقي بن مخلد.
Baqi. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So he is known to be one of the renowned scholars of Al-Andalus, or nowadays Spain. And he is known to be a very pioneering scholar in the field of hadith, in the field of compiling the teachings or the traditions of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, in addition to being a pioneering scholar in tafsir, or in the exegesis of the Noble Quran. And the story of Imam Baqi ibn Mukhlid is very striking and is very astonishing, to the extent that if it was not really documented and verified in the books of the well-known and trustworthy Muslim historians, the human mind would think that this is impossible, that this cannot be a normal human being, that this is not doable in the realm of the human beings. How come any human being can do all of this and achieve all of this and become in such a rank? So much
Hmm.
so that Imam Ibn Hazm al-Andalusi, he counts Imam Baqi ibn Mukhlid in the same rank of Imam al-Bukhari and other well-established Muslim scholars. Imam Baqi ibn Mukhlid was so keen from a very young age to seek knowledge, and he was always so motivated and so keen to do whatever it takes in order to acquire knowledge. So much so that as he was born in Al Andalus, he attended the halaqas, or the circles of knowledge, of all the scholars where he was born.
Hmm.
After doing so, he went on to seek knowledge in Mecca, in Medina, in
Hmm.
Egypt, in Iraq, and especially in Baghdad and Al Kufa, and in the rest of the northern part of Africa.
Because there were a lot of scholars over there.
Yes, in order to collect and to compile the hadith, or the teachings of the Prophet, peace and the blessings be upon him,
Hmm.
each
Hmm.
and every one of them.
Yeah.
We know from the biography of Imam Baqi ibn Mukhlid that he was not wealthy. He did not have much money. And this is why it took him 5 years to reach Mecca, because he used to walk on foot. He didn't have a means of transportation as we have nowadays, that we can take
Yeah.
such a journey in just few hours by a plane. Back then, this was not available for Imam Baqi ibn Mukhlid. This is why, as he started his journey for seeking knowledge from where he used to be in Al Andalus, he would stop at a certain village and then work there in order to make money and then continue his journey. This is why, according to the books of history, his journey of seeking knowledge and to come back to Al Andalus, it took him more than 30 years. Can you
Oh,
imagine this?
30?
Like
Like
30
30?
years? Yes, 30 years.
30.
Yes, not 3 or 13. It is 30 years acquiring knowledge, day
Wow.
and night.
Wow.
So, so,
That's amazing.
so we need to pause here, Sheikh Muhammad. How is it nowadays for us and for our children and for our family members? We have so much resources at the tip of our fingers, and it is just one click away from us. Yet
Yeah.
some people feel lazy, or they prefer watching something else, or dedicating their time, or spending their time on something else. So we need to really think and consider the magnitude of the sacrifices and the dedication that many Muslim scholars have exhibited and have exerted in pursuit of seeking knowledge. So much so, and
Mm,
you see, he didn't have enough money. This is why, on foot, he would be moving one city after the other, one village after the other. Not only this, but he even would stop and he would spend some time working in order to be able to make money and
mm,
save money in order to continue his journey of seeking knowledge. So he came to Egypt as well, and he listened and he sat at the feet of the scholars compiling the hadith of the Prophet
mm.
sallallahu alaihi wasallam and learning from them the
Alayhi
tafsir,
salatu wassalam.
the exegesis of the Noble Quran. And there
Yeah.
is a very striking part of the story of Imam Baqi ibn Mukhlid, and that's when he reached Baghdad. He has heard about Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal,
Mm,
and he was so keen to learn from him. He realized how important and how uh, prominent the status of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal when it comes to the field of ahadith, or when it comes to the domain of the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and
alayhi
blessings
salatu
upon him.
wassalam.
This is
Mm,
why he was ready to do anything in order to be in the company of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Upon the arrival of Baqi ibn Mukhlid to where Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal was, almost um, a restriction
mm.
was imposed on Imam Ahmad due to the current atmosphere back then. I mean, uh, it was not possible for Imam Ahmad, given the prevailing political atmosphere back then, it was not allowed for him, it was not lawful for him
Mm.
to teach anyone. But Imam Baqi ibn Mukhlid taking all this time and spending all this money that he made and all the time
Mm.
that
Going
he spent,
all through this hardship,
he-
that's super
yeah.
hard.
So he
Yeah.
felt so disheartened by this. So when he came to the city of Ahmad ibn Hanbal in Iraq, he was told, you cannot meet him. He is not allowed to meet anyone, and he is not teaching anyone anymore. But
Mm,
this didn't make him stop. He was
mm,
not dissuaded by this. He did not renounce his goal of seeking knowledge. Rather, he asked about where is Imam Ahmad, the whereabout of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. But he was sure that by doing this he would be risking his safety. But still, he did his best to reach Imam Ahmad, and he was told that this is the residence of Imam Ahmad. So he went there, and when Imam Ahmad opened the door and met him, he said to him, I came all the way to you from Al Andalus in order to acquire knowledge from you and to learn from you the teachings and the sayings of the Prophet, peace be upon him. He said, but I'm not allowed to teach anyone now, and I'm sure you must have heard this from the people in the city. He said, look at how keen and his unshakable resolve and determination to acquire knowledge. Imam Baqi ibn Mukhlid said to Imam Ahmad, I will come to you
mm.
in the middle of the night, disguised as a beggar, asking for help. And
Whoa.
what I need you to do is just every time I come to you, give me one hadith as if you are helping me with something or giving me an assistance or giving me
Wow.
any help to provide me as a beggar. So you see, he
So
was
just pretended to be a bigger just to
just
get,
one
you know,
hadith.
like, wow, that's so tricky and very smart, to be honest. And at the very same time, like, That's hard for somebody actually to get to like
Yeah,
do this just to pretend to be a bigger just to get only one hadith like
only
the
one
whole
hadith.
day and night he just only one hadith and
Yes,
also gets it by just pretending to be bigger, yeah.
yes, and
Okay, that's
and
hard.
and for this, not only this, as a matter of fact, to do so, he had to dress in a different way,
Yeah,
definitely,
sure.
definitely contrary to how he is used to dress in order to really appear as a beggar.
Bigger,
So
yeah, as a
you
real
see
one.
here, this is what we need to think about and to really investigate and to have the time to really appreciate how powerful this is. Someone coming from a totally different continent, on
Hmm.
foot, day and night, working by himself, by his own hands, in order to make the money necessary to continue and to proceed with his journey of seeking knowledge. And then when he comes, he is faced with this disappointing and this frustrating news that he cannot have access to the circles or the halaqat or the sessions or the classes even of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Definitely, he was so disappointed
Yeah, yeah.
at this, and yet he didn't give up. He did all what is necessary, all what it took in order to keep and to fulfill his
Hmm.
mission and his vision of acquiring knowledge. And then all this time passed. Then uh, things changed,
Hmm.
and Imam Ahmad was allowed to reconvene with his students from Iraq and from all parts of the world. And Imam Ahmad didn't forget the persistence of Imam Baqi ibn Mukhlid.
Yeah, sure, sure. How come somebody forgets
So
something like
much
this?
so that whenever Imam Ahmad would have a circle of knowledge, or whenever he would have a teaching session at his mosque in Baghdad, definitely it was so populated with so many hundreds of questions, but always he would dedicate a place right
Hmm.
next to him for Imam Baqi ibn Mukhlid till all the questions of Imam Baqi ibn Mukhlid are over, and then he would turn to the rest of the students
Whoa, that's amazing.
circle, and he would say to them, "You don't know how diligent this man is when it comes to seeking knowledge."
And
So
for
much,
sure, everybody else was getting also knowledge by Imam Taqi actually's question.
yeah,
So
because
whenever he gets
this
questions,
is
like or asks questions, and Imam, Ahmad, he answers it in public, if you can say. So everybody else listens to that and they learn in the very
but,
same
but
time,
the
right?
point is, Sheikh Muhammad, Imam Baqi ibn Mukhlid, he took the risk, knowing that it is risky. Still, he was not keen not to waste any time, not to achieve his goal. He
Yeah.
was so determined. He had a very clear goal in his mind that he is going to acquire knowledge no matter what it takes. So much so that one day, Imam Baqi has fallen sick, and he was
Hmm.
not able to attend the class or the circle of Imam Ahmad. So right away, Imam Ahmad asked about him, and he was told that Imam Baqi had fallen sick. And upon hearing this, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal asked about the residence of Imam Baqi, and he was residing in what we can call nowadays a hotel, or just
Yeah.
even a simple inn, not even a hotel.
Yeah.
So in Arabic, they call it the Khan, or a very modest residence. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal himself decided to go and pay a visit in order to check on Imam Baqi ibn Mukhlid. And as Imam Ahmad went, definitely all his students, thousands of them, they followed Imam Ahmad because always they are keen to write down and to take notes of everything that Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal says. So when they knew that Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal is going to pay a visit to a sick person, they also followed Imam Ahmad because also they wanted to attain the reward of paying a visit to a sick person. And you can imagine hundreds, if not thousands, of people going to check on Imam Baqi. So
Yeah.
no one knew who was Baqi ibn Mukhlid in that place. But when they heard the news that Ahmad ibn Hanbal himself is coming to check on Baqi, everyone now has realized who is Baqi ibn Mukhlid, and this is why Baqi himself he says everyone after this was so keen to help me and to support me
Hmm.
to show us, and this is a lesson from Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, that
Yeah.
this is how the knowledge seeker is treated and the noble status that needs to be afforded to the knowledge seeker. I know that we still have so many points to cover, but
Yeah.
I would like to leave the floor for you because I can go on and on and on. But I over to you, Sheikh Muhammad, for any
Yeah.
relations or any comments that you may have.
Yeah, like, do you remember our conversation before about the stages that any Azhari person should go through?
Yes,
Forget about it then, because like comparing to what Imam Baqi actually was doing, that is unbelievable. And I have just this question for you, Imam, which is, do you mean like the meaning of knowledge, like all the time we talk about knowledge, knowledge, knowledge? What do you mean by knowledge? Do you mean just learning the Islamic matters, or you mean maybe learning a little bit more about like medicine, about history, about like, what do you mean by knowledge? You mean
this
any
is
kind of knowledge or just the Islamic ones? And also another question, please, which
sure.
is, do you think they're gonna get hasanat by learning anything other than, Islam, or what? Please.
This is a very important question, and I really appreciate you bringing up this question, Sheikh Muhammad. And I'm sure it is because we have received it repeatedly on the Facebook page and also on the email. So many people have this question, and let me even add another point. Some people they send to me, and I remember it was a student from Germany. He wrote to me, sometimes I feel so disappointed and so disencouraged from continuing uh, my studies as a student of engineering
Hmm.
because he says I want to dedicate all my time only to acquiring Islamic knowledge. This is why this question is important. And I'd like to address this question, Sheikh Muhammad, in the form of a number of points. The very first of them is Islam encourages us to acquire all forms of knowledge as long as it is of benefit, as long as it contributes to the betterment of the life of the human being. Any form, any field of knowledge is Islamic in the sense that it goes in line with the purposes of our existence because we
Hmm.
understand that one of the essential purposes of the existence of the human being is إعمار الأرض
Yeah.
or the development of the land. That's to make the world a better place for everyone. And
Yeah.
definitely, this cannot be accomplished without acquiring all forms of beneficial knowledge. So, in this sense, all forms of beneficial knowledge are Islamic. So, I hope that this is clear. As
Yeah.
much as we need people who specialize in fiqh, in jurisprudence, and in tafsir or in the exegesis of the Bible Quran, we also need individuals who specialize in medicine, individuals who specialize in law and all its branches. We need individuals who specialize in engineering, in biology, in chemistry, in physics, in art, in education, in all of these, in the media, all of these are very important fields in order to specialize in. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Noble Quran. As we read, فَلَوْلَا نَفَرَ مِنْ كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ مِّنْهُمْ طَائِفَةٌ لِيَتَفَقَّهُوا فِي الدِّينِ وَلِيُنذِرُوا قَوْمَهُمْ إِذَا رَجِعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ لَعَلَّهُم يَحْذَرُونَ.
Yeah.
Very briefly, the meaning of this verse: it is not befitting of the believers to dedicate all of the members of the community to acquiring only faith based knowledge, or what can be described as religious knowledge. Rather, what is befitting of the believers is to be specialized in groups, so that a group in these, which can be described as religious knowledge or faith related or faith based knowledge, and others specialized in the rest of the fields. So this is the balance. This is the approach or the proper approach of the community, that we have specialists or expertise in all of these areas. Number
Yeah.
three, number three, yes, it is very important to have what is referred to as ما لا يسع المسلم جهله,
Yeah.
or
Exactly.
this amount of knowledge that every Muslim cannot afford to miss.
Hmm.
I
Like the
repeat.
basics.
Exactly. So I repeat again, there
Hmm.
is a minimum requirement that every Muslim needs to acquire, be they engineers, be they police officers, be they lawyers, be they medical professionals. Every Muslim is required to know about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about the pillars of Islam, about the articles of faith, so that they are in a position to be and to practice Islam, so that they are Muslims in the practical sense of the word. But you cannot be a Muslim and you
Hmm.
don't know what invalidates the wudu or what invalidates the ablution.
Exactly.
You cannot
Exactly.
be a Muslim and you don't know the things that render the fasting null and void. So there is no excuse for not knowing this. And especially nowadays, Sheikh Muhammad, with all these resources and with all these technological advancements with which knowledge is available, and with the presence of reliable learning centers like Al Azhar and so many others, no Muslim today has an excuse to say, I cannot learn more, learn about these principle or these foundational or these basics when it comes to Islam. This is at the fingertip of every human being. So this is very important to keep in mind, and I hope that by mentioning and highlighting these points, I have provided the answer to your very important and very significant question.
Yeah, you did. Thank you. Thank you so much for your answer. Also, like you
If you have
reminded me of
any other
something.
points, please go ahead. Like
Yeah,
explain.
yeah. As actually you reminded me of this point actually, which is like how important it is to learn anything. I remember in one of the ghazwas of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, when one of like when he commanded one of the Sahaba to get to
Mhm,
learn the language of their enemies,
mhm,
and he just highlighted this point that whoever knows the language of the enemy will help him like to be aware of their danger and stuff. So subhanallah, it doesn't just it's not about just like learning like about Islam and stuff, but also learning the worldly like I mean every single kind of knowledge, so we
mhm,
can get to make the world a better place to live. But as you actually mentioned, the most important point, that it's okay, just get whatever you want to get, just learn as more information as you can, but at the end of the day, you cannot be a super successful surgeon, for example, but you do not know how to perform your prayer in a correct way or something. So just get whatever you want from the side, but make sure that you have the minimum amount of information that you need to know about your religion.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you, Imam Hussein. Yes, please.
another point, Sheikh Muhammad, is with this minimum level, then
Yeah,
we can increase on it. It doesn't mean that we just need this amount and that's it. But even in one's spare time, and of course, uh, I don't personally have a spare time, and I think this should be the attitude of every Muslim that
yeah,
there are many important things to do in life, and we need even more times in addition to our times in order to achieve all what we need to achieve. So
yeah,
there are many important things, and we need to invest in every second of our lifetime in order to achieve them. I'd like to reiterate a
yeah,
saying here by Imam Hassan al-Basri,
yeah, please.
as he once said, "O son of Adam, nothing but a number of days put together. So with the passage of each day, a piece of you or a piece of your essence is gone. So
Mm,
our presence is in this life is basically and essentially days put together, and this is why we need to invest in every day wisely and responsibly.
yeah. So, Imam Hussein, would you please tell us a little bit more about like the manners of seeking knowledge? Like, I believe every single thing should have like manners or something. So, as a
Yeah,
Muslim, what
yeah,
are the things that I should take care of whenever I like would like, for example, to seek knowledge or
yeah,
something? What
yeah,
are the
yeah.
manners of seeking knowledge in Islam? Please.
This is a very important question, Sheikh Muhammad, and I really appreciate raising this question at this time because you find that when we look into the literature of the Muslim scholar, they dedicate so much attention to the point of the manners of seeking knowledge, the way how the knowledge seeker thinks, the way how the knowledge seeker speaks and deals with others, and their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why how important it is to be aware of the manners of seeking knowledge, because this is the key to seeking knowledge. And also, I'd like to reiterate here a
Yeah, please.
saying that was said by one of the students of Imam Malik, and his name is Ibn al-Qasim. He is one of the very well-known disciples or students of Imam Malik. And he said that I have accompanied Imam Malik for the period of 20 years.
20 years.
Yes, acquiring knowledge and manners.
Wow.
Said,
You
yeah,
know, like, excuse me, but whenever you talk about these years, I
yeah,
just feel that, what are we doing? Like you're talking about 20 and 30 years. That's a lot for someone to get knowledge. I mean,
yeah.
okay, okay,
This is
but
this is
like
how
that's why
we,
they're super, like that they're super awesome scholars. That's why, Alhamdulillah, we have all these books talking about religion. That's why we have all these like translations, that we can say like
yes, definitely.
meanings of the Quran and stuff. Yeah. So please. Hmm.
And this reflects how they really realized the importance of seeking knowledge and the importance of what they were dedicating their lifetime for. And this is why, as you have just said, we have all these scholarly works and all of this wealth of knowledge left by all of these scholars. And this is the meaning of a very important hadith that highlights the paramount importance and the virtues of seeking knowledge. And that's the hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ, is reported to have said that knowledge is the inheritance of the prophets and the messengers.
Yeah.
And the prophets and the messengers did not leave behind gold or silver. Rather, they left behind knowledge. So whoever acquires and seizes this knowledge, they have indeed acquired, and they have possessed something of great importance. So this is the understanding that the the inheritance is not gold, it's not silver, it's not something material, but really the inheritance that the prophets and the messengers left and is their legacy of knowledge. So this is why Imam Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with him, he once saw the people so keen in the market and raising their voices in the market. So he wanted to remind the people of how temporary life is, and that they don't need to be quarreling and disputing
Yeah.
over worldly things in the market. So he stood in the middle of the market and he shouted out loud, "The inheritance of the Prophet is being distributed at the mosque. Hasten everyone, the inheritance of the mosque is being distributed at the mosque." So definitely, hearing this, everyone left all what they were doing and everything that they were busy with, and they rushed towards the mosque because they were expecting uh, golden currencies and silver and
Yes.
deeds of ownership or contracts. Rather, they didn't see any of this. They saw
Yeah.
people reciting the Quran. They saw people sitting in circles, acquiring knowledge. They saw people engaged in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they came to Abu Hurairah and they said to him, "We went to the mosque and we just saw people reciting the Quran and praying and learning and doing dhikr." He said, "This is the inheritance of the Prophet. In order to correct the understanding of the community that what is really of benefit and what is really worthwhile is knowledge and acquiring knowledge." Back to the point of the manners of seeking knowledge, Sheikh Muhammad, yes, the Muslim scholars have spent and have dedicated and spilt so much ink on this point in particular. And in the remaining time, I'd like to highlight some
Yeah,
of the
please.
most important manners that the Muslim scholars have identified in their books. A very important point to start with is one's intention.
Yeah.
So it is very important for the knowledge seeker to be sincere in acquiring knowledge, that they do so primarily, purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because we mentioned that from an Islamic perspective, acquiring knowledge is an act of worship. So this is why it's very important to have a pure intention. And
Yes.
there are many good intentions that the person or the individual can make up in their minds. And that's, for instance, to remove the ignorance from them so that they don't have any form of ignorance. Another good intention is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on sure knowledge or on a basira. Another point or the third intention can be to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through seeking knowledge, as we have mentioned. A fourth one is to increase and to draw nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is because we read in the Noble Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. That's indeed the ones who fear Allah the most, the ones who are the most conscious and mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the knowledgeable ones. So this is why the more knowledge the person has or possesses, and this applies to all forms of knowledge, even in science. And
Mm,
this is why even many scientists, they say that half knowledge leads to atheism, but full knowledge leads to the one and only creator.
yes.
I
Yes.
will,
Like I can relate to this.
I will say this again.
Yeah, please.
Even scientists, they have said and stated clearly that half knowledge leads to atheism. However, full knowledge and sure knowledge leads to belief in the one and only Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thus,
Subhanahu wa
the
ta'ala.
meaning of this Quranic verse that those who are the most conscious and mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the ones with more knowledge. So all of these are very important pieces of intention to keep in one's mind as we are
Yes.
talking of the first manner of the knowledge seeker, and that's to have a pure intention.
And it's okay,
Another,
like you can have as many intentions as possible. Think of as many as you want, and the more intentions you have, the more hasana you're gonna get at the end of the
yes,
day.
right. This is exactly the point. Yes. With that being said, another important manner is saving one's time and spending one's time rationally and responsibly. This is a
Hmm.
very important manner that all the Muslim scholars have highlighted, and this is why we find many Muslim scholars speaking of the importance of time when it comes to the life of the individual. This is why Imam Wahb al-Zuhaili, may Allah have mercy on him, he's a contemporary Muslim scholar who just passed away a few years ago. He wrote a
May
book
Allah be
entitled
pleased with them.
قيمة الوقت or قيمة الزمن عند العلماء. That's the significance of time in the sight of the scholars. And he has elaborated on this point. So very briefly, that the knowledge seeker is very keen on spending their time wisely. This is why a knowledge seeker would not be wasting their time on watching or doing non-beneficial things. This is way beyond a knowledge seeker. So a knowledge seeker is too wise to spend their time on
Yeah,
non-beneficial things. This is why a true knowledge seeker, they are mature enough and they don't need anyone else to tell them that no, it is better not to play video games, for example, or not to spend so much time watching this or non-beneficial series and go study your Quran or what you need to memorize. A knowledge seeker does not even need this because they already know the importance of their time. Uh, a third point here, Sheikh Muhammad, is affording the right reverence and respect to the alim or to the sheikh.
yeah,
This is why always the knowledge seeker is so well mannered when it comes to dealing with the teacher or dealing with their parents or dealing with the sheikh or with the ustaz. And just to show you how the early Muslim scholars was all of them were so keen to show this great deal of adab or noble manners towards the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So much so that when Imam Malik would be sitting in his halaqah or in his circle
yeah.
in the mosque of the Prophet, he would not even extend his leg towards the place where the Prophet ﷺ is, out of respect to the Prophet ﷺ. So you see, the Prophet ﷺ is no longer with us, yet still they show utmost respect to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This
Alayhi
is
salatu
why
wasalam.
no one of them, and this is even the guidance of the Quran, no one even would raise their voice in the presence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and even after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, still no one is allowed to raise their voice in the mosque of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Alayhi salatu wasalam. Which is
More
mentioned
than this,
already in Surah Al-Hujurat.
exactly, yes. More than this, we find in the literature of the Muslim scholars the saying that when I am in the presence of my sheikh or when I am in the presence of my scholar, I would be so keen when I turn the pages of my book to do it so gently so that I would not hurt the ears of my sheikh or my teacher. You see to what point, and you see the extent of showing respect to the alim or to the sheikh, that even when they turn the pages of the book, they would do so so gently and so softly, so that this would not cause any noise to the ears of the sheikh. So
Yeah.
imagine how they talk with the sheikh. Imagine how they walk in when the sheikh is around. These are the manners of Islam. This is how the Muslim scholars were when it comes to dealing with the sheikh or with the alim. Another important manner
Point.
here or point, Sheikh Muhammad, is the keenness on seeking knowledge. This is why you find the knowledge seeker always keen to learn more. It is like they want to devour every source of knowledge that comes their way. That day and night they are busy accumulating knowledge because they have realized that the most precious thing to gather and to compile is knowledge. And
Yeah,
this is
sure.
why the next manner is showing respect to the sheikh by not repeatedly asking him in the same session. So, like one of the manners that need to be kept in the mind in the process of seeking knowledge is to ask the sheikh or to ask the alim, but not to overdo this, not to exceed the limit in doing so, so that there would be no burden whatsoever on the sheikh or the alim.
Yes.
So I still have so many points that I'd like to mention, but I know that we are running out of
Out of
time.
yeah, and because
I
mashallah
still,
that like as I said at the very beginning, the topic is like so juicy, mashallah. Like
yes,
there are so many things we can actually get to mention about this topic, but
yes,
alhamdulillah, we can say that we covered a good portion of this topic,
yes,
and I think like for all of our dear viewers, you can get to just like watch this video, so you can
yes,
get to get the whole background about the ethics of you can say of seeking knowledge in Islam and what
yes,
Muslims should do whenever they get to like learn more uh, whatever the topic or whatever the career that they're in, and also like you can be amazed as like as I did actually, like you can be amazed again by just getting to listen to these stories of those like Muslim scholars that actually traveled like 30 years, 20 years and all that time.
yes,
So thank you so much, Imam Hussein, for your precious information. Thank you for sharing us all of these points. Thank you all, dear viewers, for paying that attention and for investing your time to get to learn more about our beloved religion, the Islamic one. You can easily leave your leave your questions in a comment, or like even you can just send us a message so we can get to answer all of your questions. Alhamdulillah, last week we got like many questions asking about like points, and we easily respond to them. And also for all of our dear viewers, you can also join a free 5 minutes clinic, if you can say, like it's called like Al Fatiha clinic or Quran clinic, where you get to we're gonna be able to like learn how to read Quran in just like 5 minutes. We do this one. It's super for free, like it's totally for free. We do this every single Friday. It's gonna be tomorrow, and for every single Thursday, we have our live webinar. We have our live meeting with Imam Hussein. Talking about one of the very juicy topics about Islamic parenting in Islam, or Islamic parenting, if we can say. So thank you, Imam Hussein. Thank you, everyone, for listening to us. Please support us by just like leaving your feedback. Like if you would like us to talk about a specific topic, you can just suggest us ones, and inshallah we're gonna get to talk about them. Thank you everyone. Inshallah gonna get to see you later. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام.